So as we've been telling you, tomorrow is the 10th anniversary of Superstorm Sandy hitting the tri-state area.
The storm caused catastrophic damage. Thousands of people were forced out of their homes and millions were left without power.
Yeah, 10 years later, are we better prepared for another severe storm? Well, joining us now to talk about it is Con Ed CEO Tim Cawley.
Tim, thank you for being with us this morning.
Good morning. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's already been 10 years. How much better is Con Ed prepared now than it was back in 2012?
Yeah, I agree. The 10 years has flown. Time does tend to fly. We are in significantly better position following Sandy. It was really a wake-up call for us with regard to climate resilience and mitigation. We've invested over $1 billion after Sandy to protect our infrastructure from floods and to make our overhead equipment more resilient to the heavy winds that come in. So much better prepared and more work to do.
All right. Well, Tim, during Sandy, of course, a lot of us even saw this. We witnessed that 13th Street substation get flooded, and then there was a huge arc-like explosion. It left 250,000 people in the dark. Now, we've seen recently that you strengthened that facility, but what other things still need to be done around the city?
Yes, so that's our East River facility, and there's the flash. That's a piece of equipment that's shorted out. Effectively, the East River came in across the FDR, and the new tide line was Avenue B. Our control room was waist deep in water. So the restoration occurred from Tuesday morning when we got access to that site. Crews worked through, and on Friday night through Saturday morning, we were able to restore Lower Manhattan, the 230,000 customers that were impacted. Since then, we embarked on the hardening programs that I had referenced earlier. Things like building walls around that substation to keep the water out, raising critical equipment. Our control center, where our operators work, was on the first floor when Sandy occurred. We have since moved that up to the second floor. We've changed out our control wiring in substations at that location and at other locations throughout our service territory. We've moved from copper wires to fiber optics. The fiber does much better when impacted by water and salt water. We've also raised critical equipment out of the flood zone to ensure it stays in service during these flood periods. So that's at the substations. We've taken that hardening out to the streets as well. We install submersible equipment in areas that'll be flood prone. And on our overhead system, we've removed hazardous trees that are likely to fall in the high winds. We've installed smart switches that limit the number of customers that are impacted when a tree does come down. And we've hardened the wire and poles that we've installed.
Well, you've done a lot of work. That's a lot of work, and we have to see whether or not it's going to really hold up. God willing, it doesn't happen like as bad as it was with Sandy. But NYCHA buildings, they were really hit hard, weren't they, by Sandy? I think there were like 80,000 NYCHA residents that lost power, heat, hot water, some of them for more than 2 weeks. So what kind of changes has Con Ed made to help NYCHA residents in those buildings?
Yeah, and just to comment on the effectiveness of the work thus far, when we do the studies, we believe we've avoided about 1 million customer outages since Sandy based on the efforts that we've already conducted. And we continue to integrate this hardening into our everyday work. With regard to NYCHA, we work very closely with the city and NYCHA to ensure that they receive the safe, reliable power that they expect and deserve. Some of the NYCHA facilities are in low-lying areas and were impacted by the floods. We've worked with them, and they've done some work as well. All
right, Tim. Well, this is obviously expensive investment and improvements. How has it affected rates?
So we enter these programs in through a stakeholder process, and they get approved by our regulator. When we take a look at the investments, we think they're cost beneficial in that the outages that we avoid over time and the system that we build out resiliency will ultimately save money. Extreme weather events are becoming more severe and more frequent, and we really need energy delivery systems for this great region that will withstand what will become more frequent, more severe weather events. And so the investment is well worth every penny.
Yeah, well, some will say there's nothing that we can do. These storms are coming, you can't stop them. But some are also saying climate change is a part of the reason you believe the city, because of climate change and the warmer weather that we're going to be getting. So can you tell us about the study that Con Ed did with Columbia?
Absolutely. So we invested the $1 billion, and we continue to invest in storm hardening. We also embarked on a climate change vulnerability study with Columbia and a bunch of other smart folks. And it really looked, Hazel, at not only what climate change will do in our particular region over the next decades, but particularly how will that climate change impact our energy delivery systems. And the study tells us that today in Central Park, there are about 4 degrees that hit 95 degrees or above. The study tells us in the next decade, that'll be 11, and a decade later, 23.
Wow.
So we're anticipating hotter summers, longer heat waves, and we have to build the energy delivery system, the grid out to withstand that. With that heat comes greater demand, largely through air conditioners. And also, we have to size our equipment to allow it to cool on the overnight period so that it can readdress the heat on the next day for these longer heat waves. So our engineers build that thinking into the equipment we put in the ground today and in the air, and so we're planning ahead. We've also, after the vulnerability study, created a climate vulnerability implementation plan that really has us integrate the findings from that study into all we do. So when our engineers sit down and design something, they're looking not at what the floodplain is today, they're looking where it will be in 20 and 30 years, but because that equipment will be in service in 20 and 30 years. So we want to build the system for where climate will be, not where it is. We continue to learn. Climate science is evolving and improving every day, and so we'll stay with this. This is not one and done. We'll be after this for a while.
All right, Con Ed CEO Tim Cawley, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
All right.